How
Hey,
are you
John, how's it
doing?
going?
It's good. Would you mind kicking us off with a little bit of an introduction on yourself for those who don't know you?
Absolutely. It's great to be with you guys. I know we've been wanting to do this for a little while, so it's great to be with
Yeah,
you.
somehow we missed
So,
you at Hill and Valley. It was a crazy day, but it was good
I
seeing
mean,
you
you
there
guys, you
nonetheless.
guys were overrun,
We were.
the hottest spot at the conference. So,
Yeah, the tiny room in the corner that everyone was beating down the door to get into. It was good.
it was a crazy day. Those guys did a great job.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, so my name's Pippa Lamb. I'm a partner at Sweet Capital. We are a private investment fund. Clue is in the name, Sweet
Hmm.
Capital. My colleagues started a gaming company,
Hmm.
Candy Crush, most famously King.com, which they sold
Wow.
to Activision and then
Yep.
subsequently Microsoft. I
Huge.
run a huge game. I run the private investment fund for
Hmm.
those founders. And we sit between the US and Europe and invest sort of broadly multi-stage. Again, we're private capital, so we can sort of uh, invest across a whole wide range of sectors. And I'd say we're about 70% US allocation at this point.
Got it.
Um, my background, I actually started out my career working for the British government
Hmm.
on trade relations between the West, UK, US, and China, which obviously quite topical today. And I then sort of moved into equity research, covered large cap China tech, US tech at JP Morgan for 5 years. So pretty much just doing publics, covered a lot of macro, which obviously is now increasingly relevant to sort of the tech world and private investing now. But been in venture and private investing for about 5, 6 years now. So
Cool.
yeah, great to be here with you guys.
Yeah. How are the founders thinking about investing in gaming technology? I feel like every successful founder, they sell their company and they're either like, I'm never doing that industry again. I know too much about what can go wrong, so I want to stay away from it. Or they're like, I'm an expert and I'm going to dominate the next generation of generational companies that come up in the industry I know so much about. Obviously, there's a lot of value add there. So what's their feeling on gaming startups right now? And are you doing any deals in that area broadly?
So I'd say it goes both ways.
Yeah.
So there are 5 founders of King. So
Hmm.
I'd say a couple of the founders are like, "Send me back
Let's
in.
do
I'm
it.
ready
Yeah.
for more gaming." In fact, one of our colleagues is actually started a new company as soon as his non-compete pretty much ended
Hmm.
with Activision and Microsoft last year. So he's straight back in it. He's operating sort of in stealth at the moment, but he's kind of straight back into operating. So very
Hmm.
much bullish on gaming. And I'd say on the other side, it's a little bit of a range between wanting to invest alongside more the gaming ecosystem, not so
Hmm.
much purely on publishers. I think that obviously King and Candy Crush were such an incredible zeitgeist and breakout success. I think
Yeah.
Match 3 and sort of casual gaming really rode the kind of mobile transition that we saw be so large for them and when they were coming up. I think obviously the gaming industry has moved a lot, and of course, my colleagues are still very interested in what's happening. I think a lot of what's happening obviously around AI and sort of the broader ecosystem. Um, it's still extremely tapped in. So we do look at gaming deals,
Yeah.
but I'd say that it was partly the thing that you allude to about having knowing too much that has meant that we've with the private investing we do on the side, we've really moved out of purely doing gaming.
Yeah.
We did also have a non-compete for quite a long time with Activision, so we were sort of
Sure.
forced in my earlier years to do sort of the gamification of adjacent sectors versus
Makes sense.
competing immediately with their former company.
Yeah.
How did you guys react to the news last week around the App Store and the changes to the App Store's payment, or the forced changes to
Mm.
the App Store's payment policies?
Look, I think that I don't want to speak for them, but they certainly had an ongoing, very interesting relationship with Apple throughout the course of I guess as Candy Crush was coming up. I think also, they really began at a time of sort of the internet portal. They really had to deal with how they were dealing with Facebook at the time, Meta, and also Apple. So I think that broadly. You know we're hopeful around
Yeah.
changes coming out, but I think that certainly the issues that we faced as operators certainly are the world is drastically different now. We're no longer really at the fight to try and win mobile, which is
Mm.
really how they were having to come up at the time. So I think it's too early to say, but it's certainly something that my colleagues are tracking very closely, and certainly Sebastian Knudsen, who I mentioned has started his own new company, is actually facing now directly as they launch their first game. So let's see.
Yeah, gaming is such an interesting venture category because I feel like over the last like 5 years, there's been a ton of breakout games, but very few of them were like true venture backed, like seed Series A from main funds. Like Fortnite came out of Epic Games. It's like a 30-year-old company. Roblox had this venture story, but all the early backers, they became rich off of Roblox, and Roblox was kind of like their main win. Then Among Us and Balatro were these huge successes, but they were kind of just like random indie developers who just kind of got lucky and weren't really like financialized in like we're building a team. And then a lot of the game companies like pivoted, like Slack was originally a game company. And so if you go into Silicon Valley, they eventually push you into B2B SaaS if you're a game company. But anyway, I mean, we could talk about gaming all day, but I want to hear your take on the UK-US trade deal. That was the first one to fall last week. You had a great breakdown on X about it. I'd love you to take me through kind of like, what was your expectation? How do you process the news, and what do you see going forward with that particular trade deal?
And maybe before you dive into that, even kind of the on the ground opinion in the UK, how UK citizens have viewed this whole trade debaple, given that the US has a trade surplus with the UK.
Right. Yeah. It's funny. I know a friend, Ryan from Flagsport, tweeted, the UK is the only country to have a trade surplus. The US have a trade surplus with the UK. So it doesn't bode well for other countries, right? If we manage to that is the beginning point. But I think, of the top 10 countries that the US has a trading partner with, the UK is the only one that they don't have a trade deficit with. So let's see. Yeah, look, I think I sort of find myself putting back my macro hat on again these days so much, because we had finally this first trade agreement between the US and the UK announced last week. And of course, this morning with the news coming out of Geneva of how the US and China are hopefully going to move towards closer bilateral trade dialogue. So I think first on the UK piece, I know that sort of from behind the scenes that this has really been something that has been in the minds of the UK government ever since sort of mid-February or end of February when we had that very sort of, very productive and positive meeting between Prime Minister Keir Starmer and President Trump at the White House. I think that there has been on both sides a real determination to work towards some sort of bilateral trade agreement that went beyond the Liberation Day board, where I think we were at 10% with some of the lowest countries. So this has been in the works for weeks, certainly I guess a few months since then. And I think the reception has been broadly positive. I think that, of course, there are still talks to be had. I know Ambassador Peter Mandelson has said that this is it's not a still picture. I think he said it's a movie. The trade will continue. The trade talks will continue. But if you look at the headlines, it brings down to the average, I think, tariff to somewhere between 1% and 2%. That is the aim, which, of course, is hugely beneficial for both when we were really sort of stuck at the 10%. So I'd say it's been broadly very positive. Obviously, markets reacted well to it, and it really hit some of the key points around sort of steel and autos, which I think are, in both sides' views, potentially a blueprint for how the US is going to engage with other trade partners. I think that where I would like to see things move next is really expanding this into a broader dialogue around UK and US tech partnerships. I think that is certainly something that we should keep our eyes peeled on over the coming weeks, and something that, I think there's a lot of interest on the UK side about really firming up our relationship with, US big tech. We already have a fantastic working relationship with many, large tech companies in the US, but I think we could really push the needle on some of the sectors that have become issues of national security, be it, AI, defense, robotics, and stuff like that. So yeah, broadly positive, and I think it's been interesting to watch how we've seen, the UK public and also UK big industry react to, the new administration and what the White House is doing.
Do you think the UK will be kind of a net importer or exporter of venture capital over the next few years? Obviously, there's a lot of LPs there that would love to invest in American companies. There's also new projects to invest in UK-based entrepreneurs and new startups. So what does the trade balance look like from a venture capitalist perspective?
I think it depends who you ask. I think that traditionally we have struggled in the UK, and I say we, obviously I'm British. I have personally, as a microcosm, spent about 70% of my AUM on the US. So I think it's clear sort of how I voted with our wallets. But I think certainly if you look at Europe, there has traditionally been a issue with getting scaled capital to the pre-IPO stage. So, you had a lot of this homegrown seed capital and sort of, of course, US counterparts setting up their UK offices, be it Accel, who's done very well there, and Index, who are, still big firms in the US, but they really found their footing in Europe. And then in recent years, you had, Sequoia come in, you had, Andreessen Horowitz do a big crypto play, NEA and many others. So I think that there is certainly continued to be sort of the UK has really wanted to welcome US venture capital, but of course, it has also raised the question as to why isn't there more homegrown, European and US funding at that later stage. So I think, in some ways the industry is just more nascent there. So it has taken time to scale up these funds. But yeah, I mean, I personally think that we should continue to try and push for greater collaboration on the capital side at those later stages as well.
Do you think the UK is a good kind of launch pad for investing in the Nordics broadly? Because the Nordics seem to be a little bit of violation of the narrative that Europe isn't producing generational companies. You have Spotify, Skype, there's tons of stuff out of Sweden and Estonia. And there seem to be pockets of like really entrepreneurial cultures there, even if it doesn't fit like the traditional Euro narrative. So is that an interesting angle to like go set up in the UK and then deploy into the Nordics broadly?
Okay, first of all, I want to know if my colleagues have been texting you, because four of my founders are Swedish, the other is Italian. So this is definitely like a setup. But yeah, look, we're a big fan of obviously investing in the Nordics. I think that my general view, and John, I saw a lot of you at the end of last year when around the US election, I was on the ground in the US for a couple of months during that ramp up, and I remember on election night being at a sort of election watch party, and a lot of people were saying to me, okay, well, this is great, in many ways for the US tech scene, but how will this impact the UK and Europe? And I was the one going around saying, look, this is a fantastic chance for, the UK and, the US's closest allies to also benefit from some of these, hopefully, blockages that are moving, especially within the tech sector. So my view is that, the UK is still a fantastic place from which to welcome, tech companies as a gateway to broadly Europe. I do think the Nordics are definitely a sweet spot. So King, obviously, basically also being a part of that. The Nordic gaming community is huge.
They didn't even make this list. I'm looking at this list: Cursor, Klarna, MySQL, Minecraft, Spotify, Linear, Skype, Aura.
King. I mean, King invest listed on the New York Stock Exchange, but its headquarters were in London, but its co-founders a lot of them are Swedish. But certainly we our second office really is Stockholm. So a big fan of that, and I think that it's proof that both in the Nordics and also in Eastern Europe, you've had some really breakout sectors, including gaming. So
What about foundation models? Has anybody kind of raised around like we're the UK OpenAI? Let's raise this. Has got to be worth $1 billion, right? Got to be worth at least $1 billion.
So we haven't had our own sort of foundation model in that sense. I think that's something that the UK is seriously considering, and as we think about this theme of sovereign capital and secure capital, and how the UK is actually going to be able to compete at that level of the sort of AI ecosystem. Of course, across the channel in France, we have Mistral, and famously, we've had incredible generational AI talent on the engineering side in the UK for a long time. But DeepMind was was started in the UK and
Yeah.
obviously moved over to Google. So I think that certainly as the UK government thinks about this next generation of AI companies and sort of technology companies in general, it's certainly something that is very top of mind for how both, DCIT, the Department of Science and Technology, the Foreign Office, and also number 10, thinking about these things. So
have you thought specifically about like expatriating entrepreneurs? I mean, just go find the best entrepreneurs, set them up with the first round, take a huge chunk of the company, and then say, hey, go to San Francisco. That's where you need to be. Go build the company. Because there is the aperture widens when all of a sudden you're talking about, yes, American companies, but founded by European entrepreneurs. Then you're in the trillions of dollars of market cap, right?
Yeah, sure. We could. I mean, if we already look at companies that fit that, then we can draw a line nowhere. I mean, Stripe in theory has British, founders or
Irish. Let's not.
I know.
Group
I
them
know.
in.
Don't get
I'm
the
a separatist
calling me
personally.
Up,
I am against.
But if we really, I think what's important, is keeping. I think for the UK government would be also keeping its homegrown talent in the UK. I think that's obviously a very sore spot as to why DeepMind did leave. And I think that the UK, in my view, needs to look at itself and consider what are the requirements that you really need to build multi-trillion-dollar market cap companies in the UK and Europe more broadly. But I think that there is, if you look at this current administration, there has been a lot of really encouraging signs. Early at the beginning of this year, we had the an AI Act that the PM signed off on, where 20 new ideas around how to enable AI progress in the UK specifically were announced and adopted, and that really came from a lot of great work from collaborators in the venture capital industry in the UK. Friend of mine, Matt Clifford, who has been advising number 10 on, really the opportunity around AI and AI security. So yeah, let's see. But I think that my hope is stepping out more broadly, that the conversation between the UK and the US can also start a bit of a blueprint for how the US starts to work with some of its other allies on tariffs and also on tech partnerships.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining.
Well,
this
you
is
are
fantastic.
Our official UK correspondent.
Yes, let's get a sound effect.
Let's get an air horn for you.
We need the
Thank you.
Greek
I'm
music.
honored to be that, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'd love to have you back soon. We'll talk to you soon.
Good to see you.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Thanks, guys.